we now have the future tenant moving in, and we can see moving in on the 9th. I'm going to click into that, and off the back of all of that happening, the rent schedule has been created and updated correctly. So if you remember, we took the holding fee up front. That is considered tenant money until the point that it gets redirected. So we can see in here, the holding fee was put towards a rent payment on the 7th. So that was the date it was put towards it. And we can see the payment that was made, and we can see the rent it was assigned to was the rent that's on the 9th, which is this one here. We can see the original payment of 1,600, and that gets put towards a deposit, a rent, and another rent. So we can see now that this tenant's rent collection panel is all nice and up to date. Now, this rent collection panel is something that seems to cause a few problems, and I think it's because when some people go through the onboarding, they also go onto the rent collection panel directly and log stuff and unlog stuff, and I think it maybe just causes a bit of confusion. We've put more steps in now that when things are updated, it updates on the onboarding panel. But generally, when people are going through the onboarding, we'd suggest that you mark them as paid within that. With our latest Rent AI stuff, if you mark them as paid on the Rent AI, it should again update the onboarding panel. So it all stays up to date. Can the holding fee be put towards a deposit rather than rent? Okay, actually, this will be a good chance for me to show you something. It can be, but the system by default goes towards rent. It's mainly because people seem to have quite strong feelings one way or the other, and fewer people have strong feelings on the rent side of it. I should just want to say this is in no way any legal or accounting advice, but ultimately, as long as you're recognizing any money held in the correct way it's held, it doesn't matter then what it goes towards. But I will leave that for anyone to decide what's right for their business. But if you wanted to do that, it's quite simple. And what I'll do now is show you all how to solve any problems in this panel. So I'm going to log a payment. Let's say that they've paid £300 towards something. They just paid £300. We don't know. We haven't assigned it towards anything. I'm just going to mark it as paid now. So this will sit there saying that there is £350. At this point, this payment here will be marked as unassigned. And what you need to do is click into it and you go to assign and you assign it. But before I do that, I am just going to go back to the main rent collection panel as well, so you can see what that will look like. So in the rent collection panel, you'll see that there is a tenancy with unassigned payments. You can see here who it is and how much is unassigned. That is flagging you to go in. Generally, you probably don't want a tenancy that has unassigned payments. It should be assigned. I know a lot of other systems basically just do how much money's owed and how much money's in. We actually track it where that money has gone to. So we know that through the system that they've paid this amount and this amount went to these things. So you can just see that really clear. But let's say we are now going to unassign the whole payment that we just made. We can go through here and we can unassign each part of it. Okay, so that's unassigned, and then just going to try and unassign everything, to be honest, but I'm probably going to make a bit of a faff of it, because this is usually when people call me for support that I then just have to figure out where everything's happened. Okay, so now I'm going to assign, I'm first of all going to assign that to the deposit, which I think was that one there. So I've now reassigned the rent to the deposit, and I'm going to reassign this to everything that's left. Okay, and then I'm going to assign this payment just to something in future, I guess. There we go. So now we can see that that's part paid. hopefully that didn't come across as too confusing, but ultimately I just unassign things and reassign them. You can use this nice little reassociate button, and all that does is unassigns everything and reassigns it in date order. That can sometimes just solve your problems. If ever you get things on here that's saying this rent hasn't been paid, what you always want to go down to is just open up that tenant's panel, look down here, and just see which ones aren't paid, and make sure that the payments align with the payments that the tenants made. Almost all the time that these things happen, it's just that a payment's been forgotten. And then they've gone ahead and the next month's gone to the next month, and so on. Okay, so let's go to this. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to log that this tenant now owes us some money and some rent. So we're going to say that, in fact, I'll do it on the other person's account. I'll go into Brandy's account. I'm going to set the rent schedule here. So this is what happens if you don't go through the onboarding. You still can do all these things. You just set it up in here. And we're going to, actually, we're not going to do future only. We're going to take it back to when the tenancy started. So she moved in on the 1st of August, and there's rents going through up until now. So that's now creating the rent schedule in full. And we can see here that all of these are unconfirmed overdue. So that means that you haven't told us either way whether it's overdue or not. So we don't want to like flag it too heavily and say it is overdue. But we can go into each of these and we can say mark it as on time. Next one, mark it as paid on time. Actually, we know that she didn't pay October on time, so I'm going to log a payment and I'm going to put it as the, she paid it on the 6th. And this starts to let us build up a bit of a profile about this tenant. We can see here, she's paid 1/3 of them on time. And when you look into your performance panel here, that will track how many people are paying on time, how late they're paying on average and stuff. So you don't have to go into this detail and have exactly when people are paying, but if you put the data in, the system will help you understand how the business is operating. And if you use our Rent AI, then you don't have to have any of that hassle. It will just help you pick those things up and put it in. Okay, so now we know that she actually hasn't paid November. Can't believe that. So we're going to mark it as overdue. And we don't know the reason, or maybe she's told us she's forgot, but right now we don't know the reason. So we're just going to mark it as unknown. And we're also going to say she hasn't paid December either. Terrible payer. So we're going to mark this one as overdue. And again, the reason's not known. So now we have a tenant that's £1,300 overdue. So I'm going to go back into our main page and I'm going to open the rent collection panel. And now we can see that as a business, we have £1,300 overdue to us in arrears. I imagine that many of you will be thankful if it was just that. So I won't be too upset about it, though I guess with 2 rooms tenanted, it's probably not ideal. And we can see a breakdown then of every property that these are from, and we can see how long it is that they've been overdue. So actually it's going to give me more information if I change this to a tenancy. So we can see that Brandy is overdue £650 within the last 30 days. And you can see where that goes back to. What we can do then is group it. And we can see that this one here, I actually want to send her a reminder about this. So I'm going to click to send a reminder. And I'm going to send an email. I'm going to put please pay. And then you can view a preview of what that looks like. It's going to say how much is paid, the property, and the message about that. So I'm going to save that. Now, a nice thing that we do is she will actually get in her COHO account, she'll get that notification and she'll have the ability to respond to it and be able to flag it and say, I forgot, and this I'm going to pay tomorrow or something like that, or some other thing came up and I'm going to pay on this date. Or they can say, I did pay it, and here's the payment reference. So if they say they did pay it, it's going to flag the payment reference. And you'll get an action in your account to say that the tenant's responded to it, and you'll be able to see and hear what the response is. And that could let you jump in and go, actually, yeah, here it is on the bank statement. It just wasn't what we were expecting to see. So you can use that if you want. You don't have to use that. Some of our users find it really easy. Can we send things before they're due? Yes. So you can go into the ones due today or due this month, and you can send a reminder to say that the rent's coming up. We also have this area that I don't really want to go into at the moment. I think it's probably a whole thing in itself. And this lets you look at the create a whole escalation policy, which is like, we're going to send this at 3 days. At 5 days, we're going to make a phone call. At 12 days, we're going to do this. So look in there, but we need to create videos around that. Related to the rent is rental statements, which you may have seen. And this just lets you get a breakdown of the rent as it's being paid. As I showed, there's some options here to adjust it. And again, it's just that we saw that people do things differently and want to see things differently. So just check out these options. And this will kind of give you the balance from December to December. And we can see there's an opening balance, and that, yeah, there's the December balance as well. Cool. Okay, and then if you want to if you want to change the amount of rent that this person's meant to be paying, you can click that rent button here. This is a much better way than just going to the tenancy and changing the amount. So with this, you can say the date that it's going to change from, and you can say what it's going to change to. Oh God, not 7,000. I won't be very happy. So I'm going to regenerate that. Yeah, and it's going to just take the rents going forward. Cool. Again, these things take a little bit longer because the rent schedule is involved in the finances. So we can see here that from the next rent payment after that date, it will all go to the new way. There is a credit control notes section just for you to store anything that's happening across all of the rents. Go in a tenancy. Yes, I want to show everyone this, and I'll probably, if I edit this and upload it, I'll probably hook it in. This is quite an important one. So let's say some people, let's say they have a chargeable parking space or something like that. So what we're going to do here is you can have a recurring item, and you can say it's for this person, and we're going to start from the start of the tenancy, and we're going to end it till the end of the tenancy. And it's not rent, but it's actually something else. And we could say is, we're going to say it's parking. And this, let's say this is a parking space, and we're going to charge this person £25 a month. And then what you can do is that will then add into their rent schedule this parking space, and every month it will add a new one at £25, and that will be in there with the rent schedule. If you don't want something that's like happening every single month, and let's say they've lost their keys or something like that, and you need to put it in, you can add a new money due. Now it's not rent, it's some sort of tenant cost. So we can put lost keys. And we can either say it's due with the next rent, in which case it will put it for the same day, or we can choose a specific day that we expect that to be paid. You can also add arrears. So if you're adding a room onto the system that you've already had in the past, or property in the past, and someone has built up however much of arrears and you want to track that, you can just start that off with, there is 2,500, and we're just going to start that on this date. Yeah, that was something I wanted to cover, so I'm quite glad that someone did that, mention that. Okay, so I think if I get to the bottom of this, okay, so I'll leave that there. I will send everybody the recording of this. I'll also see if I can get it on YouTube and chop it up into little chapters. If this was useful, it'd be really good to know from people if they found it good, if they found my method of delivering it good. And if it wasn't a waste of time, I will probably look to arrange some other sessions covering some other areas of the system that's maybe a bit more complex. The finances, for example, I mentioned at the start of this, the finances can be like super helpful for people, but it also sometimes requires a little bit of a mind switch. Trying to think of any other sections. I could give another blast through, which are some like hidden gems. One of my favorite bits is the tenant vibe check that I think a lot of people maybe isn't even aware it's a thing on the system, but is like super useful in my opinion. Yeah, how you use welcome packs, the inspections. Yeah, I can arrange some other training sessions on this, or I could just rerun this one with slightly more experience.